Someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number 1. Shocker. Iron.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Dewey Dailey along with John Bruce for this week's show. Took a week off last week. Schedules didn't exactly align because we had some previous trips scheduled, but we're back.
I think I still have jet lag from last week. So
yeah,
it's a little tired last week and didn't really work out. But yeah, I had kind of a rough 2 weeks for us over here at Southern Ohio Sports Authority, but I think we got everything kind of settled in from here. And
yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, we got some new equipment, new sponsors everywhere, and we appreciate the new sponsors to help the new equipment happen because things happen sometimes.
Tomlinson Insurance, the newest addition to the streaming family. I think we have 6 now in total. So shout out to Willie and Glockner who have been here from the beginning. Yes. Those are the originals.
The originals.
And Parmar wasn't too far behind, but
hey, if you don't have a Parmar store near you,
will soon.
Yes,
you will. There will be soon. I will say, just from my 2 flights, Delta and Southwest are very different. And
which do you like better?
Southwest is terrible, but it's cheaper.
It's much cheaper.
Except they get you because
did you have to layover?
Well, no,
exactly.
But you have to pay $50 for a bag, whereas with Delta it's like included.
Bags are included. Southwest.
Well, mine wasn't Southwest, but it was in the same airport as Southwest. It was like Sun Country or something.
That's probably what it is.
It was. Yeah.
No, Southwest. We use Southwest a lot. It's gonna be changing because it's kind of open seating, which is kind of cool.
Sit wherever you want.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's kind of
probably a madhouse.
Yes, they have it in certain orders, but like I think it was the second flight we were taking. No, it was the first flight back from San Francisco, and this woman tried to get on with the family boarding. It wasn't family boarding yet. She didn't have a family with her either. She just was in the very last group, so she was trying to get in ahead of everybody because they're like, "Oh, it's a full flight," and then our flight from Phoenix to Columbus was 39% full.
How long did that take?
It ended up being like 6.5 hours total airport time.
Man, I can't do that.
Yeah,
I mean, our flights were like 2 hours, and it was draining me.
But remember, we lost our car keys too, so we had to have the extra time to help to have other people step up for us. Yeah, so that could have been bad. If you ever lose your car keys, try to make sure you're across the country before you realize it, and on your way back.
Well, we took a week off, but a lot of stuff happened. And I think week 3 will probably go down as a top 3 week for high school football this year.
Definitely so far.
I will say, for me personally, 4 of my top 10 teams in my power rankings lost. So there was a lot going on, but a lot of them were against each other. So
nice night on Friday.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
They ended up splitting the games in half, which our own game that I was going to call, but I had something to do on Saturday. So Carson ended up coming back Saturday night for what ended up being what I think you can consider an upset at this point in the season with Unioto going over Waverly. We'll talk about that a little later. But a couple other games between teams we had in our top 10. Miami traced Logan Elm. Jackson and Wheelersburg played as well. So, there were a lot of games going around, and we'll talk about some of them.
Ironton got some revenge, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew last year they lost, and we were kind of looking at that game a little bit as a possibility, and what was it, 53-3 or something?
Yeah, it was atrocious. It was a blowout.
Cabell Midland graduated a lot is what I got from that game, so.
Hey, Ironton went and learned, like, their coaches went and, like, did some stuff with Marion Locals up in Maria Stein. Their coaches in the off season, and they just got better. And you can tell through 3 weeks that they are so much better than they were. And that's what's crazy because they were going to be really good anyway.
You just look at how bad they made teams that we're more familiar with, and like Jackson and Wheelersburg, who like in all honesty are probably the 2 top teams in our area, and they got made. They looked pretty bad.
Made them look very ordinary
against Ironton. So we'll go ahead and jump into this week's headlines coming off of last week. We'll stay on the topic of football with Braylon Robertson, senior tailback at Paint Valley, And we're just guessing here. This is assuming he's played in every game since he's been at
Which
Paint
I believe
Valley.
he has.
So in 27 games, Robertson is now the all-time leading rusher at Paint Valley, over 4,100 yards. They're off to a 3-0 start this year. I think I have them. They're either at 5 or 6 in my power rankings, so they're off to a great start. Picked up a big win over West Jeff in week 2, which I think that's the first time they beat them in a couple years. I think
in the time when they played them. Yeah.
Oh, so they haven't been playing them.
They haven't played
I'm
them
not
very
too
long.
familiar
So I
with
think
that
it's like the last
matchup,
4 seasons, something like that. And it was the first time they had beaten them.
So they're off to a great start, and a lot of that has to do with what Robertson has not only done on the ground the last couple of years, but what he's done this year so far as well.
Yeah, and the big thing when you hear 4,100 yards over, let's say, 27 games, like, oh, they're probably run heavy. But they're very well balanced. They throw the ball really well. Carson Free's a really dynamic wide receiver. They've got a couple. There's a Kane, I believe Jeremy Kane made a couple big catches for him the other night against McLean, and Preston Fauber's a solid quarterback. They do a good job of moving the ball in the air. But man, when Robertson gets going downhill, he's big, tough. He's hard to tackle anyway, but he also has good breakaway speed too. So if he gets a step on you, you're in trouble. So he's had an outstanding career so far at Paint Valley, and he's definitely got a few games left and to add on to that.
I'd say Paint Valley probably good for at least one playoff win. I would assume they're D7, I think. D6. So
they're in a weird area where the top like 6 are ridiculous in their region. The rest are not very good. Yeah. But so
if you can get a top 8 seed.
Yeah, so if they can get a 1 or 2 seed, they've got a pretty good chance to win 2 before it gets really tough. And if not, then it gets really tough in week 2, which is fine. But yeah, it's a really tough region, but it's very top heavy in that region. But yeah, they are off to a 3-0 start. They've got a really good chance again this week to continue that. And, I think it was, I'm going to pull it up real quick because.
Well, I will say for Paint Valley, I think with the history they've had, especially recently, their program is at the point to where, like, it's not really a goal to win one playoff game. Like, you're looking to win 2 or 3, whereas a lot of other programs around here are still looking for that first playoff win, whereas Paint Valley's been there, done that. They're looking to win more. So
yeah, if Piketon's healthy, week 7, I think will be their first. Probably.
Yeah, I was going to say, for Paint Valley, they're back. They're the last, they have Unioto Zane Trace weeks 9 and 10, so they're just building up all year till those last hand. And really, that's how everything is, because, for ZT and Unioto, it's week 8 and 10. So,
Yeah. Unioto is Zane Trace 8, Paint Valley 10. Yeah. Zane Trace is 8 and 10. Yeah. So.
Pretty much the last couple of years, the SVC has been decided in weeks 8, 9, and 10.
So the SVC will come down to likely those last 3 weeks, but also Piketon with week 7. But I know one of their top players didn't play this week, so hopefully he'll be back soon. Kind of same thing for Zane Trace as well. So we'll talk more about that when we get to the football segment, which is not very far from now.
No, it's not.
But yeah, we've had some other outstanding action so far, especially in volleyball.
Yep, we're going to move on to volleyball, specifically SOC 3 volleyballs. We have a couple milestones in that conference. We'll start with Maci Bradford of Portsmouth West, now the all-time leader in career assists down on the west side with 1,176 career assists and counting. They're off to a 5-4 start this year. They just graduated Emma Sayre, who is
Marshall.
Went to Marshall and was
I would assume was their Diggs leader.
Well, I was going to say was one of the top players around our area last season and really for the majority of her career. But they're off to a 5-4 start, and it's really not. And not to say that, that's solid, especially in the conference they're in. They're in one of the tougher conferences when we talk about volleyball, and they're going to get a good taste of that this week. They have 2 big-time conference matches on the road. First one is at Wheelersburg Tuesday night, and the second one is at South Webster on Thursday night. So it really doesn't get a whole lot tougher than that. So we'll kind of see how Portsmouth West measures up to, I think maybe the two two teams we're kind of predicting to be at the top of that conference in volleyball.
Yeah, and West has won 15-plus games the last 2 seasons, so it's nice to see them still have a little bit of success early in the year this year. But, yeah, like you said, it gets a lot tougher. You're coming up this week as, obviously with Wheelersburg and South Webster and both on the road. If you get them at home, I mean, it's still not going to be easy at home, but at least it's at home. But I guess the one really good thing about the SOC 3 especially, it's not very spread out. SOC 2, not very close. But, yeah, the SOC 3 is pretty pretty close, so they have a pretty decent chance to, you have a decent chance to protect your home court, but you also can bring a bigger crowd. Mm-hmm. I will say this, Emma Sayers played in a decent amount of sets so far for Marshall. So,
well, what is it out of
looks like 12 out of 22. So, I mean,
that's solid.
Yeah, for
about half.
Yeah, incoming freshmen, and there's only, I think, 4 or 5 that have played more than her. So, I would guess that she is probably playing pretty well right now. So, good for her. Not too surprising. Like, just one of those really good athletes that we've had in the area. So, but yeah, Maci Bradford, good for her for, carrying on West's legacy a little bit.
Yeah, and the best part about it is you become the all-time leader. It's 9 games into the season.
Yeah.
Right? So you still have, 15 more or maybe more games to go. So
be cool if she can get over 1,500.
Yeah. We'll stick in the SOC 3. We'll talk about Addi Claxon, a player we're extremely familiar with. We've seen her down in Logan the past 2 years. I believe she's a junior now. I think last year she was a sophomore, if I remember correctly. So we've seen her at Logan both times. They've made it to, I think, at least 2 consecutive regionals. I think maybe 3. I might not even be right at 2, but they've at least made the regional semis a handful of years in a row. It's one of the more successful programs in our area over the last handful of years. She just eclipsed her 1,000th dig last week. South Webster, no surprise, they're out to a 7-0 start to begin the campaign.
Yeah, you lost a couple of big-time players in Claxon's sister, and you also and Zimmerman as well. So you lost a couple of really good players, but when you start your season, they play Adena every year to start the year, or at least it's Adena's first game, but it's usually a really big early season matchup between 2 of the really elite programs in the Southeast, and Southwestern was able to win that one fairly handily this year, which is always a good thing for the Jeeps to start. Now, this is going to go to the new OHSA, how everything's done. I don't know exactly what division they are, so that could help them in the tournament if there is, maybe they're not in that same division with like an Adena and Wheelersburg and
hopefully not Meadowbrook.
Meadowbrook, yeah.
Meadowbrook has been a thorn in the Southeast District side the last couple of years in the regionals.
Yeah, so I mean, if you can find a way to maybe get a little easier route to the regionals, and then you kind of go from there. But yeah, it's a 7-0 start for the Jeeps, and just outstanding season so far for them, and that's led by Addi Claxon.
You always got to mention it, best mascot in the area, without a doubt. And they actually have like a mascot suit, which is like a bunch of bonus points.
Hey, I saw, of course, it was on TikTok. It was Jay Billis talking about his favorite mascots in college sports, and then he talked about the ones that he's scared of. Can you think of one that was scary?
I feel like Duke's is kind of scary.
He didn't say it, but it's probably because he went to Duke. But have you seen Providence's?
They're like it's like a black hooded thing or something.
Yeah.
Isn't it some weird looking thing?
Yeah. It's Providence Friars. It's pretty scary. He also had Big Red from Western Kentucky.
Grimace thing?
Yeah, but he was like, I just don't know what it is. It's like, it's like Grimace.
It's Red Grimace is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to football. A lot of action. We mentioned a ton of teams in our top 10. The 3 games we're going to talk about were, I think for both of us, 6 teams that were probably in about our top 6. I mean, these were a lot
outside of Ironton. Yeah.
A lot of outside of Ironton these were some highly regarded teams. We'll talk about Jackson and Wheelersburg first. Now, I think this game,
these were all also played at different times on Saturday.
That's what I was going to say. I think all of these games got pushed to Saturday. Jackson comes out on top in a barn burner, more or less, 28-24 final.
Yeah, Bodie Wolford scores a quarterback sneak with 6.5 seconds left to play to put the Ironmen over the top of the Pirates, and that was a really good game down at Ed Miller Stadium. It's just, you get two really good programs, two of the top three programs in our area, and they're playing, like all three of them are playing each other in the first 3 weeks.
That's
and
awesome.
It's just, it raises their levels, in my opinion. And, Wheelersburg obviously played much better than they had the previous 2 weeks. Really struggled over at McNicholas in week 2. That one kind of surprised me a little bit, but the Ironton one didn't surprise me as much. But then Ironton really put it on Jackson in week 2. Ironton's very good. That's one of the reasons why they're one of the favorites to win the state championship. But yeah, Jackson does a good job of bouncing back. Early in the game, Jake Clevenger for Wheelersburg had a 34-yard pick six, which could have gave them all the momentum, but Jackson was able to bounce back. Nolan Johnson was a big part of that. He had 28 rushes for 176 yards and a touchdown. He also had a 77-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. And we kind of talked about that, and we'll talk about that in a minute with the next game too, but these big-time players are just making huge plays, especially in special teams, sometimes on defense, and Johnson did a good job of really changing the game for the Ironmen. Also in the game, Ryan Simons for Jackson had a 61-yard touchdown reception. Wolford ended up 5 for 9 for 96 yards and a touchdown, and as we mentioned with that rushing touchdown as well. So that was the 4 scores for Jackson. For Wheelersburg, Kenyon Evans had a touchdown reception. He also had a long touchdown catch that came up a little bit short. It was just, it was a big matchup between two really tough teams. Wheelersburg kicked a field goal before the half. Maybe if they had a little more time left, they're able to get it in for 6, and then this game just keeps going. But yeah, it's a really good matchup between two really good programs, and Brock was able to see that one.
I couldn't find the exact year, but I thought I saw Paul post it on Facebook.
1969.
Yep. I was going to say, first time since 1969 that Wheelersburg has started off 0-3, but you're losing to 3 just outstanding programs.
Yes.
I don't think Wheelersburg is going to lose another football game until you get to the playoffs. So, eyeball that game against Waverly. I think that's week 7 or week 8, maybe somewhere towards the end of the season.
Yeah, on Fantastic 50, they're still ranked 6th in Region 19, and they're 0-3.
Yeah.
So that's because they've played Ironton, who's a top. They haven't 26, but a top 30 team in the state. McNicholas is a top 100 team in the state, and they've got Jackson as a top 150, and that's across all divisions. So this week they play Northwest. But then they've got Valley, who is much better, but still 0-3 at this point. And then you've got Harvest Prep.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that game. My bad.
So there's a pretty decent chance they're going to go in at 6-4 into the playoffs. So they got a tough Waverly team in week 8 as well. It's just a really tough schedule. And the craziest part about it, I think, is because the SOC isn't as highly thought of by the computers, but their regular season strength of schedule is only 41st in their division. Let's see what Ironton's is. Ironton's is 5th.
Yeah. And the SOC too, specifically, has definitely taken a bit of a step back, just from like the last couple of years, because you kind of lose West as one of those perennial teams, and then
Minford's been down.
Yeah, I was going to say Minford's down a little bit. Valley's coming back up, but not really nearly where they were
I think they're going to be really good. They're going to be really good next year.
Yep.
But one game to look for.
Northwest loses probably a top 3 player in the entire conference. So, it's there's a lot of young guys. It's kind of a reload time in the SOC too.
And you said this in the pre-show, or like 3 hours we did pre-show, was who Jackson's got in week 4, which is the honorary FAC member, Western Brown, who is 3-0. They play them at home this week. Western Brown so far has played
everybody but McLean.
Yeah, they've beat Hillsboro, Courthouse, and Chillicothe. Then they play at Jackson and at Miami Trace in week 5.
Yep.
So I bet if they had a chance, they would find a way to get McLean in their schedule too. So
they're basically the 7th member of the Frontier Athletic Conference, minus McLean. It's like a COVID year. You play everybody except for one.
Yeah, they're 3-0 right now. So Let's see if they can hold up and win the conference.
Yeah,
They would definitely like. There's some schools that would definitely make like some sort of a banner or something like FAC champions.
titles.
Yeah.
What are they? Are they in like the SBAC or whatever?
They're in
Maci's
Southern Buckeye.
Yeah.
They're in the Southern Buckeye with.
Is that like the Southern Buckeye Academic Athletic Conference?
Yes.
Yeah, they're in there with like Clinton Maci, and
Yep.
that's the only. I just know because they have
Wilmington.
Yep.
Cane Pride.
There we go.
They also got Goshen, New Richmond. New Richmond's pretty good. Batavia's not very good.
Bulldogs.
But yeah. I'm
All right.
Big New Richmond fan too.
We'll move on to another.
Apparently the field floods all the time.
Theirs does.
It's like right on the river. Yeah.
We'll move on to another pretty close game. I wouldn't. I wasn't there. Obviously, you were, so you can speak on it a little bit.
We went radio
higher
a little
than
bit.
me. We did new setup, like we said. Maybe not the highest quality of football, I think might be fair to say, in terms of offense, as it was only 20-14, and this is a game that has been maybe a little higher scoring in years past, but
yeah, it was
nonetheless Unioto.
A lot of punts.
Yeah, a lot of punts. Interesting final score for Unioto. I'll let you kind of take away this one as you were there and I was in Columbus. But Unioto comes out on top, 20-14, just 7 days after a road loss at Amanda Clear Creek, who had lost to
Lyndon McKinley.
The week before. So
yeah, that was.
It's been an interesting 3 weeks for
about
the Unioto
as
Shermans.
low as Unioto could go to about as high as they could go. Let's see if they can avoid that coming into week 4. But yeah, the game was it was pretty slow to start. It ended up 7-0 at the half. Really, both teams a lot of punts. Waverly was able to get inside the red zone once, but kind of the story for Waverly's offense was they weren't really able to run it, but they got at least 5 first downs via penalties, or no, 4. No, it was 5 because they had a pass interference too. They had a pass interference, a roughing the passer, and 3 face masks. So they were able to extend drives that way, but they were able to get in the red zone, unable to score. And then Unioto responded pretty quickly. Blake Hoops made a really nice play down the left sideline for about a 26-yard gain. Nice pitch and catch from Isaac Coy to Blake Hoops, which set up Coy hitting Cody Braden for 25 yards. Somehow he got wide open down the seam on that play. Made it 7-0. Going to the half, nothing really doing early. But in the third, Coy hits Hoops on a nice slant route down inside the 5. Next play, Coy runs it in from 3 yards out, 14-0. The next possession for Waverly, Caden Cutright picks off a pass for Unioto. Looks like they're driving. I think it was Sebastian Belisano makes a big sack and pushes Unioto back to where they have to punt. On that following possession it was the back-to-back. It was a 4th down and like 5. Unioto gets a sack and gets called for a face mask on it. There was like 6 guys there on the play. So I have no judgment because the officials were right there. So if someone got a face mask, they got a face mask. But it ends up the next play is a completed pass and another face mask. And 2 plays later, I believe it was Pollard. It may have been Sparks. It was a Mason. Either way.
There's 3 of them.
Yeah, Mason Kelly connected with one of his namesakes on a nice out route for a touchdown. Made it 14-7. Couple possessions later, Waverly's able to go down and score. Cuts it or ends up tying it. It was the running back. You're gonna tell me on that.
For Waverly?
Yeah.
Cade Carroll?
Yeah, Cade Carroll. Cade Carroll did a nice job getting to the outside on that. Hunter Hawk extra point, made it 14-all. And then almost disaster happened for Unioto as they ended up having to punt. Snap goes over the punter's head. David Long does a good job of just getting on it instead of trying to make a play. And Unioto was able to force a fumble. Blake Hoops punched it out, and Landon Caruth, whose name we didn't spell right on the graphic, my bad, ends up recovering it for Unioto. The next play, they hit Jackson Zickafus for a 75-yard pass where Nelson caught him from behind inside the 5. A couple plays later, Coy tries to get into the end zone, fumbles, and Landon Caruth once again is able to jump on it. The junior center recovers the fumble, and Unioto ends up holding on for a 20-14 win. Kind of the craziest part of that was after it, the kickoff.
It's like 20 yards.
Yeah, it was not good. But the big thing both teams did in this game, Caden Cutright for Unioto had been dynamic all year. He had a 90-yard touchdown in one of the 2 weeks. He's a big play receiver for him. He's averaging like close to 40 yards a catch. He had 1 catch for 1 yard. And they threw it to him 4 or 5 times. Cody Swords for Waverly has been a big play receiver. He had no touches outside of when he was punting the ball. So both teams did a really good job of taking away the big play receiver for the opponent. And that's one of the big reasons why this ended up being just a 20-14 game. For Unioto, Ben Griffin and Marcel James combined for 3.5 sacks. Both were really good. I believe it was ended up being 6.5 tackles for loss between the two. So both really good for him. Cody Braden had a really good game overall. Was close to 100 yards receiving with that touchdown. Blake Hoops was close to 100 yards receiving. And Isaac Coy had a nice bounce back game for the Shermans as he threw for 220 yards, no turnovers in the game. Got kind of lucky with the Landon Cruz jumping on that ball at the end, but no turnovers. Big after a week 2 game where he struggled a little bit. So bouncing back was a big win for Unioto and Coach Hoops.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that Coy is a sophomore and he's just that naturally. I don't want to say naturally gifted, but usually it kind of takes a player, especially at the quarterback position, a little bit to, kind of get used to the high school speed of things. And, taking down a team like Waverly in the third game of your high school football career is quite the accomplishment.
And especially a team like Waverly who's got 2 really good DBs.
And I feel like up front, edge rushers, they're not bad, especially with the Myers kid
had a nice game
Coy
too.
Will be dealing with his entire career because they're in the same class. And, I think they only ran a 3-man front. At least that's what they had on paper. But like you said, a couple DBs in the secondary are very dangerous for Waverly.
Well, and then really one of the big things for Unioto too in the game was they're able to rush for over 100 yards, which was a combination of Yusef Wilson and Levi Beam combined for over 100 yards for him. And the week before at Amanda, they were in the teens rushing, and that was one of the reasons why they lost that game. They scored the same amount of touchdowns in week 2 as they did in week 3, but they were able to keep Waverly off the field a lot more because they were able to use that offensive line and then 2 really good sophomore running backs to extend drives as well.
Big time win for the Shermans. I think we both bumped them up in our power rankings a little bit. But we'll move on to the final game. We're going to talk about Miami Trace and Logan Elm. I think safe to say the first big test for Logan Elm this season, and they just ran into a really tough Miami Trace team, who I think if you go back to week 1, if Miami Trace and Waverly played 10 times, I think it's probably a 5-5 split. I think that game could go either way. We've talked a lot about kind of the kicking game for Miami Trace and how Waverly had just a 60-yard field every time, a maximum of a 60-yard field every time they had the football. But Miami Trace takes care of business in week 3. 41-20 is the final. The game was tied at 20 at one point in the game with 7:08 to go in the third quarter. Trey Robinette had a great game, 2 touchdown passes. Also ran one in. Julian Baker, one of the more talented tailbacks, and I think he's just a sophomore as well. 2 rushing touchdowns for Baker.
What, I don't know if you noticed it when we were there. So they do a lot of cool stuff with the scoreboard over at the fabricating and
what is it? Joe's Fabricating and Welding something.
It's a different first name, but it's fabricating and welding and but the video they have of Julian Baker, he looks so young and so little. He's not very little. He's over 6 foot. He's got good size to him, but he looks very little in that video. So you see him cut and get a 10-yard gain where he runs somebody over, and then that video comes up. You're probably like, oh, this is so much worse.
Yeah.
But that kid's a stud.
No, he's one of those combinations of speed and power that just make it so difficult for defenses to handle at the high school level. But also for Logan Elm, really offensively, not an awful game for the Braves. It's going to be tough to win any game that you give up 41 points. Aaron Walters, 346 through the air, 2 passing touchdowns. Gavin Hoover, pretty solid game, 3 catches for $141 and a touchdown. And Nehemiah Wall also just a little short of the 100-yard mark, 4 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown. It was really on the ground where Logan Elm struggled the most, just 4 rushing yards the entire game for the Braves.
Yeah, if you can't run the ball, although Waverly didn't really run the ball against Miami Trace either and was able to get the win, but like you said, that was a lot of short fields and being able to do some stuff in the special teams game. But yeah, that was the killer for them, because you get 350 yards total offense. Like, that doesn't really sound bad, but when your quarterback throws for 346, then it's not a great mixture. And they were in the ball a lot, because I know, I think it was Bach.
Yeah, I was going to say it was
either 14 times for 16 yards or 16 for 14, something like that. But either way, they weren't able to get anything going on the ground.
Bach was player of the week.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks in week 1 against Zane Trace. So I was going to ask you if maybe he was out for that game, but just sounds like Miami Trace wasn't playing around on the ground and, put up 41 points and got the win.
Yeah, and so did a nice job, running and passing. We didn't have the numbers on Robinette, but it sounded like he had a really good game. I know he was the Litter Media player of the game in that game as well, and they don't usually just they usually do a pretty good job of judging that. Not like, if we want to go to the Unioto one, the Kingston National Bank player of the game was Landon Caruth in that one. So
first time and probably the only time not just a lineman, a center will win player of the game. So.
Yeah. Especially like if you're a defense lineman, maybe you could just cause all kinds of havoc, but center, not a ton.
Like, I would say an edge rusher could seriously have 5 sacks and probably wouldn't get considered. But, anytime you recover 2 crucial fumbles, and one of them being a touchdown. I should have got player of the game that one year where I had a fumble recovery in the end zone. You remember that?
Yeah. You should.
Crazy. I don't think SOSA was around quite yet during that time. But
there was probably some sort of Derek was probably in Illinois, actually.
Oh, was it Illinois that they were in? All right, you ready to do power rankings?
Oh, hold on. I was gonna say something else.
Okay, I'm ready.
Well, I guess we can talk about it a little bit in power rankings, but yeah, Miami Trace, just really impressive win, especially at like 10 a.m. in the morning. Because if you got to play that early, but I don't think it gets. Let me see them in week 4. Week 4, they've got Bethel Tate, their favorite 33 points. Week 5 though is FAC adjacent with Western Brown. So things don't get a whole lot easier for.
I think I take Miami Trace in both of those,
but I think they probably win both as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about Logan Elm's next game after our power rankings.
Yes.
So the FNB game of the week.
Oh yeah, that is true. True that.
Right. You ready to go through power rankings?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to go first?
I'll kick it off.
Okay.
I'm not going to pooch kick it, though.
Okay.
I'm going to kick it deep with Ironton. 63-7 win over Cable Midland, avenging last season one of their losses. So, I mean, they're ridiculous. I mean, they did it at Marshall, so you go to a big college football stadium and just absolutely dominate. Pretty impressive. Number 2 for me, Jackson. You're going to have to tell me if these teams move. I don't think Jackson moved, right?
No, Jackson did not.
Yeah, so because he's done the graphic already. So even if I wanted to change a couple of these, I couldn't. So Jackson wins in week 2, a pretty impressive win on the road. They're just so many athletes. Nolan Johnson's just a stud. The Wolford kid's really good. They're a nice program. Obviously they do a good job there. And my number 3, I'm going to pull up a score real quick, is Fairland. I didn't love their score with Fairfield Union, 27-17. Yeah. But you go on the road. That's a long trip too. Go on the road, and based off of some experiences that I may have had as a coach, you might have been a player going down to a corner for a corner 3 and getting ran over by an official, and then me getting a technical because it cost us 3 points. He probably wasn't making it. But
we won the game though.
Yeah.
Remember who hit the game winner?
Ben Spetting. Yeah. But yeah, so it's a tough place to win. So it's a good win for Fairland. We'll see how they do this week. They're a big favorite over Rock Hill, but Rock Hill is 3-0.
Rock Hill had a 41-38 win over Oak Hill? I mean, it was like a
41-38.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah,
wanted the over.
Did not expect that score at all. And here's where people are probably going to get annoyed.
Yeah, I was very shocked when you sent these in, but hey, it is what it is.
They're probably going to be 2-4 also at one point. Is Wheelersburg? I got Wheelersburg 4th. So,
and just for anybody that doesn't watch every week, that's bumped up one from last week.
That's probably the problem. I would say they got
bumped up one from from losing again. So you go from
They
0-2 to 0-3.
They had an impressive loss.
Yeah, they did. They
So-
only lost by 4 at home to the number 2 ranked team.
Yeah. They only lost by 4 at home, as you said. So then my number 5 is Waverly. They dropped a couple spots for me. I was kind of disappointed. I mean...
Well, and the biggest problem for them, I think, and like, I think for the most part, they walk through a large part of their schedule besides Wheelersburg, so I don't think they have a whole lot to worry about. But especially against Wheelersburg and maybe into the postseason, I think Unioto may have just laid the blueprint on how to beat Waverly.
Right,
they just completely made Cody Swords, who is probably, I think it's safe to say, easily a top 5 receiver in our area, maybe like higher than top 5. And they just completely made him irrelevant in that game, just as a non-factor.
He didn't have a touch.
Yeah.
So if you can make the best player on another team or most dynamic player a non-factor, that's going to be a big thing. So hopefully that film doesn't get out. Or they're a really well-coached team, so I would assume they're going to adjust. But the next 4 weeks, they are favored by the computers at 28, 21, 40, and 42. Yeah. So they should be able to get things right, figure some stuff out before they've got.
Well, I guess week 10 they play Mount Healthy too, so that's always a tough one.
Yeah, not going to be easy. That's a heck of a week 10. You got to go over to Cincinnati, but I
think that's a home game this year. Isn't it?
It is. Yes, it is a home game. Good call. My number 6, which I was close, but because Waverly beat them, I kept them over them, was Miami Trace. Miami Trace with that really good win. They were actually favored to lose or expected to lose in the game, so they're underdogs. And they won it very easily. What was the line there? 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they won by 21.
Yeah, they won by 21. Yeah. My number 7, I've got Paint Valley. The Bearcats just keep taking care of who's on their schedule. They like I mentioned, they have a nice combination of run and pass, and things. Let me pull theirs up really quick. It might not be that quick.
I will say, like, for these rankings, there's kind of 2 ways to do them, and it's a combination of who you really think the best who the best teams are, but also who like is most deserving to be ranked where they're at. So that's where me and you differ from Wheelersburg, because it's like, yeah, Wheelersburg is most definitely a top 5 team in our area, but like for me, it's hard to have an 0-3 team top 5. I know they've lost to Ironton, Archbishop McNicholas, and Jackson. Like that's about
those
the toughest 3 games.
Yeah,
everybody in our coverage area besides those 2 teams is going to lose probably all 3 of those games. But the way Wheelersburg's schedule is set up, they've got a pretty good shot to beat pretty much everybody else. They've got a chance against Waverly. I guess they don't really play anybody else in the top 10, as those are the only 2 SOC schools.
But Harvest Prep would be in the top.
Right, right. So it's just their schedule's tough, and we know they're a good team, but they haven't won a game yet. So
right. So like going back to Paint Valley, so far their teams they've beat are 1-8 overall. So they haven't played a great schedule yet, but you take care of who's in your schedule. They've won each game by more than 1 possession, so they've won them pretty handily.
Was West Jeff the only team to win a game?
Yep. And they barely beat Madison Plains. But, so, I mean, I think they're down a little bit this year, but still, you beat them by 14 when you're expected to win by 11. So they've taken care of business. They play at Southeastern this week and at Westfall before they've got Adena at home. And, you know who's going to be fired up for that game.
For which game?
For Adena at home.
Raymond?
No. Raymond might be there, actually. No, Adrian.
Oh,
it's their first home game in 3 weeks.
I didn't know we were talking. Sorry, I didn't know we were talking about Paint Valley. And
Raymond will be around.
Adrian will be ready to roll at the. Dang, all 3 of their non-conference games were on the road.
No, week 2 was at home.
Oh, okay.
So week 1 was on the road.
So you're saying it's their first home conference game?
Yeah.
Okay.
So week 1 was on the road, then home, then road, then back to back at home. They only got 4 home games this year, so. Adrian can't play black and yellow all that often. So then
he's hurt on the field.
Yeah, my number 8 team, I have Logan Elm. I don't know. I'm interested in see this week. Now,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, you're gonna probably kill me over me dropping out the other team, but I had Portsmouth number 9. They lost to Greenup County. Also lost to them last year. I don't see that as a huge thing to Huh?
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Just obliterated my neck.
Yeah, that was very cracky.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very poppy.
Yeah, Mary Poppins over there. Yeah, so they got Gallia Academy coming up this week. They should win that. I can't believe how bad they've fallen off.
I know.
But Gallia in Benton County.
And they brought their quarterback back.
Yeah.
So
they should probably win their next 3 weeks before we see them against Fairland in
we'll
week
be down there
7.
for that
So,
one.
so I got Portsmouth number 9 and Unioto number 10, which I actually dropped out Circleville because I thought, it's not. I mean, they won, but
these are your power rankings. This is, like I said, it's a combination of who deserves to be in it and who you think the best teams are.
Yeah, I actually had said I would not put Unioto back in it again this year after they lost to Amanda, and then they beat Waverly.
Yeah.
I was like, I should probably put them back in.
All I'll say about that is that Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech and then won the national title about 5 months later. So stuff happens.
Yeah, Unioto's not winning the national title.
They are not. They are not. We're still looking for a playoff win. Second one in school history, I might add. Somebody give me a ring already. Even though I think I didn't do much.
You played.
I returned a kick that game.
Yeah, there you go.
I think
you had participation.
That's about all I did. I got some return all-purpose yards. I got some of those. All right, we'll move on to mine. Very similar at the top, the exact same actually.
Are you listed as Dewey or DC?
Huh?
Are you listed as Dewey or DC on
Max Preps? DC, I believe. And my name is Daily, not EY.
I know how to spell your name.
Well, whoever put it on Max Preps didn't spell
they put it
right.
wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is wrong.
Did I get any KR
Oh, man, they are...
kick return yards in that game?
Hold on.
I think I had some. I had like 9 catches that year.
Yeah, that one really big game.
Yeah, 2 catches for 98 yards, I think.
I was so mad that you did not get the other
I know.
2.
I should have got like a screen or something for an extra 2 yards. So
I'll figure this out. So you
all right, I'll go over my power rankings while you look up my box score from my just insane high school football career.
It's better than my football career.
All right.
I won a lot of soccer games.
So at the top, we're the same, Ironton, Jackson, and Fairland. Fairland came up a little bit higher than me. You only bumped them up from 4 to 3. I actually bumped them up from 6 to 3. Did you find it? Okay. I only bumped
Max Preps. You know it's not going to work.
I only moved Waverly down 1 in the loss. They're now 2-1. I have them in the 4 spot. You dumped them down to 5. We're the exact same with having Miami Trace and Waverly back to back because I have Miami Trace in my 5, so they move it up 2 spots. I also have Paint Valley up 2 spots there in the 6. Now, this is also where we're different a little bit. The next 2 actually are fairly different. I have Wheelersburg all the way down at 7. They're 0-3. I know they're a top 3 team in our area. I'm not saying they're not, but they are 0-3, and they'll have time to bump that back up. Right now, I just have a hard time having them in my top 5 over some teams that are 3-0 and 2-1. Now, I kept Unioto in my top 10 after the loss to Amanda. That was probably a little homerish of me, I can't lie. I think if that were any other team doing that, probably would have dropped them out. But they just had a big win on the road against Waverly, so I bumped them from 10 to 8, which I think after week 1 I maybe had them at 8, so they didn't move out a whole lot anyway. I moved Logan Elm down to 9, so just 1 spot lower than you. And then Circleville moved from 10 in your top 10 to 10 in my top 10 as I dropped Portsmouth out, who was at 10 anyway, so they didn't really have any margin for error towards the bottom. So Ironton, Jackson, Fairland, Waverly, Miami Trace, Paint Valley, Wheelersburg, Unioto, Logan Elm, and Circleville. We'll have the graphic right here. So
there you go. He's good at that stuff. You just got either a sack or a sack score or something. I don't know what you just did, but there's a video that keeps coming up.
I had a sack against. I literally had a Kellen Winslow
Did you know you
game.
completed a pass?
Yeah, and against
I
McNicholas.
threw for more passing yards in high school than you did?
I had a pass for -1 yards against McNicholas to Cameron Lonis.
There you go.
On a Philly special play.
Then you guys ran it and actually scored the next week, right? Or the 2-point try?
I don't remember anything about that McNicholas game.
No, it wasn't McNicholas. It was the Madison Plains.
Madison Plains game.
I remember a lot about it, driving up there twice.
Yeah, that's the closest I've ever been to quitting a sport. I did not want to go because it's a long drive. I don't even know where Madison Plains is. I just know it's far away.
London.
I don't know where that is either. I mean, I know it's a place, but
it's not close.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready to move on to
You had a 5-yard kickoff return against Hillsboro. Let's go, Dewey.
That's what I was saying.
That's what I'm talking about.
I think that was my second one of the year. I think I had one against ZT too, and I got.
You actually had 3. You had one against Paint Valley for 15 yards.
That got put in wrong. That didn't happen. I don't even remember that. But I just said I didn't remember the last game I played in, so it's hard to tell.
You can barely read, so it's all right.
That is true. All right. Are we ready to move on to our previews?
Let's go.
We're going to try something new this week. Not really as it pertains to the podcast, but I'm going to try to upload this preview to our program to where it kind of plays as a pregame before the football game. So if you're watching this here, you might see it before our stream if I get it to work right. So
let's go.
We're going to kick it off with...
What's our thing called?
What?
Whatever. Our new thing.
VMix?
VMix. Let's go VMix.
Boo, production truck.
Yeah.
Boo.
Actually, truck. Boo Huddle for taking over.
Yeah, boo Huddle. Huddle ruined production truck.
Yeah.
But we'll start with the game we're going to stream this week, Chillicothe at West. Now, Chillicothe 0-3, not the start they've been looking for. They did finally get on the board in week 3. They still came up a little bit short, but through the first 3 weeks of the season, they've been outscored 118-20. Now, I don't remember the score, and I didn't write it down, but they only lost like 38-20
Yep, 38
this past week, which, it's still an 18-point margin. It's still a 3-score game, but it's a lot closer than the previous 2 weeks. And like I said, they finally got on the board, and they did it a handful of times as well. And on top of that, the teams they've played a combined record of 8-1, so, it's not like you're losing to schools that are sub 500. I mean, it's 2 teams that are 3-0 and 1 team in, I think, Bloom Carroll that's 2-1, who, in all honesty, is probably the best team out of the 3 they've played. So their strength of schedule has been pretty solid so far. But in the loss to Western Brown, Andrew Hammond, sophomore quarterback for the Cavaliers, threw for over 100 yards and rushed for a touchdown. And Carde Ligon, we just have him listed as an athlete. I've heard people compare him, at least the role he's in, to kind of a Debo Samuel type role. So maybe catches a little bit if Andrew Hammond can get it to him, but also
throw it out there. Also a freshman.
Yeah, also a freshman and one of
and that they're using already.
I just put him down as a freshman athlete because he's not really a wideout, he's not really running back. That's what I've heard. He rushed for over 120 yards in the loss to Western Brown. Scott Bartholomew is still looking for his first win of the season, so we'll see if they can get it Friday night.
Yeah, he's taken multiple programs deep into the playoffs. I know with Westfall and at Logan Elm, he took them both deep into the playoffs in his coaching career. He also helped his son Wade at Bloom Carroll they got to the state championship game. So, he's had a ton of success in his career. They're just, sophomore quarterback. Freshman athlete,
and we can talk. Just a couple of years ago, Waverly. I don't know. I think they went 8-2 in the regular season when Galloway was still there. That final season, I think they only lost. Yeah. I know they lost to Jackson, and I think they may have lost one of their first. I know they beat London in the regular season and then lost handedly in the playoffs to them, but I'm pretty sure they finished the regular season 8-2. So under Bartholomew, they've had some good seasons, or at least I'm not sure how many years he's been there, but I know they've had at least one solid season. So it's just kind of been a rebuilding state the last couple of years.
Yeah, Chillicothe went 7-4 that year. Lost to Westville North,
7-3. Yeah,
and then Washington and Jackson.
Oh, they lost to Courthouse.
And that Washington was really good because that was
when Lee Master and not Rathburn. Rathburn's at Gallia. What was the Courthouse's quarterback's name? Man, I cannot remember.
He's graduated, so
I know
when they graduate. You
just move on to the next grade.
Oh, man, before week 1, I was struggling on all this, and it was...
But, the good thing for Bartholomew and the Cavs, you have a sophomore quarterback. Hopefully he can develop a little bit. And you have a guy in, I think I said Ligon. I think it's Ligon is how it's pronounced. And Carde Ligon is, I think, how we're going to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Who's just a freshman, and he's already making this big of an impact. So hopefully he sticks around, stays at Chillicothe, and they can kind of build around him as his career moves on.
I have heard nothing but really good things about him. It's on and off the field. So that's probably the most important part is the off the field stuff. So, hopefully he can keep that up. And as you mentioned, eventually this is going to turn into wins for Chillicothe, but playing a lot of young guys right now. We'll see how they do here in week 4 against West. So here at the Rock.
Yeah, be down at the Rock. That's where we'll be this Friday. Me, John, and Kenneth should be. I don't know. This is it's a 5-point spread in favor of the Senators. That's courtesy of Fantastic 50, which, take that however you want. We're 3 games in, which, obviously as the season goes on, that's on average going to get a little bit more accurate.
Yeah.
Bad thing for Chillicothe is West is probably coming off of their best game of the season, and that's fairly obvious as they got their first win. They're now 1-2. And this is a program under head coach Todd Gilliland that has been, atop of the Southeast District, atop of the SOC too, the last handful of seasons, as they're 19-5. Sorry, they have a combined record of 19-5 the last 2 seasons, with going 11-2 2 years ago, and then last year 8-3. They got their first ever SOC2 league title with a win over Wheelersburg, and I think they play week 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. It's one of those last couple weeks, but they still have a generational talent and Mason Parker. And I tell you what, for Portsmouth West to go from Ryan Sissel to Mason Parker, I mean, that's crazy. And Parker had a career day last week at Hillsboro as he had the ball 47 times for 311 yards, 4 touchdowns. They only threw the ball once, and it was Parker attempting a pass. So he was the extreme and only focal point of the Senators offense in week 3. Now, one thing I will say about the Senators is throughout the first 2 weeks, they had Brody Hall at the quarterback position. Not the most productive, but he was 8 for 23 for 30 yards, no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So I'm not sure if this is a season-long thing, but it seems like for at least week 3, Coach Todd Gilliland decided to get away from the pass and just direct snap it straight to your best player and just let him do what he can do.
Well, and a lot of it, I think, probably could have been attributed to the weather of last week as well.
Did they play on Friday?
They finished on Friday. So Friday was a ugly, sloppy night, and I know it rained a little bit over in the Hillsboro area as well. So it's maybe that's where they went, but, man, they rode it all the way, and that's a lot of runs. 47 rushes
that's crazy.
Like crazy amount. So I would look for them in this game to try to do a little something different, unless it was just something they completely saw and Mason Parker was just said, just give me the ball. Yeah. Because
give me the rock.
Yeah, they usually do a little misdirection and do some stuff to try to take a little ease off of the running back. So we'll see what they do here on Friday night, and should be another good one here over at the Rock. It's a fun place to go watch a game.
And you look at Hall's, 23 pass attempts through the first 2 games. That's obviously about 11.5 per game, or 11.5. We got that right. That is way over the average of I can't remember his first name, but Tipton last year. He was not attempting 11.5. It was maybe 3 or 4. Right. So they obviously, but it's only for 30 yards. So it's, how far is it just kind of screen passes? Is it the little touch pass? You don't know. So interested to see what happens there. I haven't at this point gotten depth charts for that. I'll get every week so we can call the game, but we'll see. I'm excited for it, and we'll see what happens on Friday night. So. Excited to get back down to the Rock.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. 2 pretty proud programs that, maybe they're not having the seasons that they are used to at this point so far, but they're going to play really hard, and should be a really fun game. Should be a big crowd.
Tell you what, the Reds just won a 1-0 game.
I know. I wasn't going to tell you.
That's kind of wild. Who pitched?
Nick Martinez.
Man, I tell you what.
Y'all ain't bringing him back.
Huh?
He ain't coming back.
I know, but he has been on a roll the last half of the season. Fernando Cruz and Alexis Diaz, both just 3 up, 3 down. That's crazy. That never happens. Yeah, especially the first one.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to our next game. So hopefully that clip of us talking about West and Chillicothe makes its way to the pregame. I think that was about 11 minutes or so that we gave some quality.
You talked a lot.
I know I did.
I didn't get to do much, but it's okay.
Would you like to add anything?
I don't want to add anything.
It's kind of too late now. But
it's never too late to say sorry. Is that a Bieber song?
Is it too late now to say sorry? Something's in your mind. I don't know. I don't know who's. I don't know what song that is. I'll let you take over this next one since.
Hold on. It is Bieber. Let's go.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, I'm glad you sang it. No, I didn't. I can't believe I'm so sad.
It was either that or
I'm
like
downloading it on the Stadium UA next year.
Yeah. It was either that or like Maroon 5 or something.
Yeah. Ugh.
Boo.
Not a big Maroon 5 guy.
All right, we'll move on to...
He's got just that big California tattoo on his...
I thought it was a band. It's one person.
Oh, no, he does, but the lead singer, Adam Levine, he's the worst. He's the worst.
Okay, we'll move on to our first National Bank game of the week, second time in 4 weeks that Logan Elm has been in this game. They're at Circleville. I believe this is the Backyard Brawl. This was our first choice to stream, but some things didn't add up, so we couldn't get over there. But this should be a pretty good game. It's the FNB game of the week for a reason. I think if you asked me before week 1 about this game, I would have said Logan Elm by 100. But man, I tell you what, Circleville is building something over there, and I'll kind of let you dive into it. But they've got some weapons on offense, and with the way Miami Trace took care of Logan Elm in week 3, I'm not quite as sold. I think I might still pick Logan Elm. I'm not sure what the line is, but I would say it's within
1.
Yeah, I was going to say it was probably within 5 points. So I'm excited to see what happens here.
Yeah, they're listed on the most improved. Circleville is listed on the most improved teams for Fantastic 50 because
absolutely, that's why they're in the top 10 for me.
Let me see real quick if I can find last season. Last season they just weren't very good. Like, I don't know the exact record, just not very good. This year, they've started off 3-0. They scored over 30 points in each game. 32-27 win over a 2-1 Warren team in week 1. 35-14 win over Vinton County in week 2. And then a 33-6 win over Westfall in week 3. And now they've got the Braves coming into town for, as you mentioned, the Backyard Brawl. And this Circle team's been really dynamic. They have a lot of guys coming back also. So a lot of juniors they got playing. I don't think, as you mentioned, a lot of people expected this. In that 33-6 win over Westfall, Hudson Phelan, the junior quarterback, was 14-18 for 179 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, also 10 rushes for 53 yards and a rush touchdown. Drew Thornsley carried the rock 21 times for 114 yards. Cole Nungester, 4 catches, 23 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's athletically the best moving that they probably could have had at Circleville as Nungester come in and be a 3-sport athlete and be a stud across all 3. Yeah. And then Jack Klein, I believe also a junior, 5 catches, 118 yards, and 2 touchdowns as well for Circleville, who really exposed a Westfall team who hadn't played bad through 2 weeks. So really impressive for Circleville so far through 3 weeks. That's why they're in your top 10, why they were in my top 10, but I dropped them because I'm
silly guy.
Scumbag. Logan Elm, as we mentioned, the 41-20 loss to Miami Trace. Aaron Walters threw for 346 yards and a couple touchdowns. Did have 3 interceptions in the game. Gavin Hoover, 3 catches, 141 yards and a touchdown. Nehemiah Wall, 4 catches, 93 yards and a touchdown. They've got to get the ball moving on the ground better. You can't have 4 yards rushing and hope to win this game unless Walters throws for 500 yards. Like it's going to be.
Which
he could. I would say has the ability to do it.
There's not a non-zero chance there.
Yeah. So I mean, he's got a chance to do some really special things, and his numbers are going to be special throughout the year. But Logan Elm's got to control the ball in this game a little bit better if they want to have a chance. 41 points is just too many, and what we've seen from the Circleville offense so far is that they have the ability to put up points. Now, Logan Elm gave up 27 points to a Zane Trace team that has scored 15 in the last 2 weeks. So that's something they've really got to clean up. They gave up 14 to Westfall, which, I mean, Westfall only scored 6 against Circleville. But Logan Elm's got to clean up some stuff defensively. They've got the quarterback. They've got the receivers, obviously. They got to get better defensively, or else this is going to be a Circleville win, because Circleville has been really dynamic offensively. They've done a pretty good job on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. I got a question.
Maybe.
Let's say Circleville wins this game.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in your power rankings? We'll say, does anybody else in our top 10s play each other?
Oh no, this week's horrible.
So I think everybody.
No offense, everybody.
So everybody in our top 10 doesn't play each other. So let's say everybody else wins. So for you,
I don't know what my power rankings are.
So
anymore.
Ironton, Jackson, Fairland, Berg, Waverly, Trace, Paint Valley, Logan Elm and Circleville, Portsmouth and Unioto. So all of those teams win, but Circleville beats Logan Elm. Do you just flip Circleville in for Logan Elm?
It might be a straight flip.
Or do you bump maybe Unioto and Portsmouth up to 8 and 9,
But
Logan Elm out? Do you leave Logan Elm in? What do you think?
If Portsmouth and Unioto each only have one loss, then I'm probably going to just... That'll be the switch. Would be Circleville in for Logan Elm.
So you put Logan Elm at 8, so that'd be up 3 spots.
But that doesn't necessarily mean they would be up there. But if they're really impressive, they could jump Paint Valley.
I don't know.
If they win
Depends how much they win by.
Yeah, if they win by more than
coin flip.
If they win by more than Miami Trace did, maybe they jump Miami Trace. I don't know.
Okay, they're 3-0.
I mean, I have an 0-3 team at number 4 right now. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's the wild, wild west over there, bud.
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what you were thinking. But one thing I want to talk about Nungester on is impactful as he's been for Circleville so far. Like, he was at Taze Valley, and whenever kids move schools, you always figure it might be something related to playing time. They don't think they might play as much, which I think he's pretty solid, pretty impactful basketball player for them as well.
Yes.
Taze Valley beat Bloom Carroll. So what does that say about how good Taze Valley is if a kid like Nungester is making the move to Circleville? And like I said, we don't know the exact situations there, so it's hard to assume anything.
Yeah,
but
like...
At Taze Valley, there's a bunch of dudes that are just like him that are doing what he's doing. So
yeah, I know they had a really good now junior, that was same age as him in basketball. But man, they are Taze Valley. I know they're technically outside of our coverage area, and they're in the OCC now, but they're a fun team to follow because, for years they weren't winning the conference, and now they're going to go in the OCC and try to compete. And then, like you said, they beat Bloom Carroll in week 2. I mean, that's a really impressive really impressive win for Taze Valley. I was trying to think of the Vikings. Golly, man, I hope Jacob doesn't watch this because that's where Jacob Wise went.
That is where Jacob Wise went. And big shout out. I know he probably won't be watching this. But big shout out to is your mic falling? You gotta.
Yeah, this falls all the time. I'm not worried about it. I'm just gonna hold it.
Big shout out to Jacob Wise, who got all of our new equipment. I mean, I say new equipment, but it's really just the program on the laptop. But
it's a new laptop.
Yeah, and we've got a thingy down here, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, look at the thing down there.
There.
Got
all the scores from the last week.
That thing. Eastern Megs.
Eastern
43,
Megs.
South Gallia 14.
Miller.
That's what I'm going to do just one week is just read off the scores as they go by.
They're all down there.
Manchester 28. Green 21. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Manchester, one of the few Shack schools picking up a win.
Yeah.
I want to tell you that Logan did win a game. I was thinking about the OCC.
Yeah, me.
They beat Nelsonville York in week 2. So shout out to Chieftains.
That's a weird rivalry. I know they're really close to each other geographically, but like not even close school size.
Pick Central this week for the Chieftains. So
have fun
with that one, because I'm not thinking that'll be a whole lot of fun. They play Taze Valley week 10, so those two teams come together at that point. All right, we'll move on to the volleyball/soccer. You good?
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna hold it. This does it all the time. This is the only thing that doesn't work.
You have to.
I know.
You have to twist it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, that's fine. We won't do that. We'll move on to the soccer and volleyball segment of the show. We'll start off with a couple soccer matches coming up this week. Tuesday night, we actually streamed this last year, but
oof, that was rough.
Don't think we're going to make it down there this year because we'll be somewhere else doing something else.
There's a chance we get the rematches. I'm not going to say we're going to. I'm going to say there's a chance.
These ones at Wheeler? Well, you want to go to Ed Miller Stadium.
That would be the way we would do it because they have the more extended press box and many less people in it, to where I think we would be able to get a little more room on it, but we'll see. We will see. Yeah. Especially after how these games go. Man, these are going to be some good games. It's a pair of SOC matchups between Wheelersburg and Minford. Actually, I have them listed wrong. The boys' game is first.
Okay, it wasn't like that last year.
Yeah, the first game, I believe, at 5:30. It could be 5. But Wheelersburg, which is 6-0, taking on Minford, which is 5-1. Minford lost their opener to Lynchburg Clay. They were actually winning 3-0. Ended up losing that game 4-3. But they've been really good since then. Miles Montgomery, 13 goals, 8 assists so far in the year. Gavin Downey, 6 goals, 4 assists. Ethan Cordell, 6 goals. I believe it's 3 shutouts now for Kate Glockner. It's a good defensive team. Ashton Reeder's a really good overall player as well for the Falcons. They're a really good team. Peyton Cottle has been maybe the free agent pickup of the year, as he came from came from the football program where he was the quarterback, and he's an all-Ohio sprinter, and now he can go play up top with Miles Montgomery. If you can somehow figure out a way to make one of your best goal scorers in school history's life a little bit easier, they've been able to do it. They're a really well coached. These are two really well coached teams as well. Wheelersburg comes in at 6-0, led by Nick Sylvia. He's got 18 goals. He kind of took a little bit of a back step last year, goal scoring wise, but man, he can really fill it up for you. They've got he's averaging 3 goals a game through the first 6. Ethan Hochstetler, 6 goals, 4 assists. Evan Mitchell, who came over from Northwest, has 9 assists so far for Wheelersburg. Both of these teams beat really good South Webster 2-1 early in the season, so this is it's a must win for, I would say, for Minford, especially because you're at home. But South Webster, I'm sure, is hoping that something crazy happens to where they end up splitting, and then South Webster's able to beat them both to maybe get a 3-way tie. But so South Webster still has an outside chance in the SOC, but more likely it's between these two with Wheelersburg and Minford. Once again, Wheelersburg 6-0, Minford 5-1. I believe Derek Webb will be there.
Yep.
I would assume with pretty pictures and then also an article and whatnot. But
I wouldn't count on the article. That's
I can't say anything. I haven't written one yet because
that's okay. That's not your job.
My games have not been close. Speaking of not been close, I've seen Minford play twice, and they've won by a combined 11-0.
Was one of those Northwest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was impressed.
That was the most recent one, wasn't it? Right after you got back?
No, when I got back, I saw them play Valley. That was 4-0. That was a good game, actually. It was a good game for 4-0. But yeah, so then the nightcap will be the girls' contest, which is Wheelersburg at 5-0 against Minford at 5-0. For Minford, they are led by Ava Kernan, 8 goals, 6 assists on the year, and Lexi Conkle, 7 goals. She's their all-time leading goal scorer. They've been really good defensively so far. It's a really good program they've got for the Falcons, led by those 2 outstanding seniors. Maggie Reisner has also had a nice year. Sadie Tiemann. I don't remember what we decided on last year, but either way, she leads them in assists as well. She's been really good for them. They're a really dynamic offensive team. Now, for Wheelersburg, also 5-0, Ella Hochstetler, 10 goals, 4 assists. Ella McGraw, 8 goals. Mia Vastine with 6 goals, 5 assists. It's a really good team as well, and they're a very new program with Wheelersburg, and man, this is going to be a really fun matchup. I'm excited for Derek to get down there. Combined record between the two programs is 21-1. So, and the one was a game where they lost a 3-goal lead. So, should be really fun games to follow there on Tuesday night down at Muletown.
There you go.
Yeah, I had to remember for a second.
All right, we'll move on to a couple volleyball matches that are between 4 teams that are all undefeated within their conferences. 3 of those 4 teams are all undefeated in general, but the one team that isn't is potentially the best team out of all of them. So we'll dive right into it. First one is a game that we plan on live streaming Tuesday night. I believe the graphic has since been released, but it's Huntington at Adena. The Lady Huntsmen, Hunts ladies, however you want to go about it. I'll probably just be saying Huntsman so it flows better, but just know I don't agree with that. Lady Huntsman sounds weird. I like how Jackson does it, the Iron Ladies. Yes. So I think Huntington just needs to go Hunts ladies. But either way, Huntington 7-0, 4-0 in the SVC. Now, in those 4 sets in the SVC, they are 12-3. One of those losses was to Zane Trace, and I believe we said 2 were against Westfall. But nonetheless, still 4-0. Casey Carroll leads the Huntsmen with 123 kills, averaging just a little bit over 5 at 5.1 per set. And then Liam McCloskey with 246 assists, averaging 10.3 per set. So those are kind of the 2 big players so far this season for Huntington. Now, for Adena, they're 8-3, 4-0 in the SVC. Now, they extremely close. 12-2 when you talk about individual sets. Now, both of those set losses were to Unioto, so the other 3 SVC matches have just been straight set sweeps for the Warriors. We talked a little bit about it before we went live. It's kind of been the Katie Burns show so far this season for Adena. She leads the Warriors with 168 kills, averaging 5.6 per set. Now, Corinne Day is also over the 100 kill mark with 109, right around 3.5 per set. And they're running the 4-2 with 2 setters in Cameron Sowers and Kayla Grooms. They're both above 120 kills, 120 assists, and a little bit over 4 per set. So a little bit more involved for Adena, but I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, Burns has been outstanding overall. And like you mentioned, for Huntington, Casey Carroll has just been dynamic for 4 years for the Huntsman. And Leah McCloskey is likely the most experienced and probably the best setter back in the SVC, and she's one of the only ones that they're in that 5-1 where she's doing all of the setting for them, and she's been really good so far for Coach Kello. This is their first chance to really take on kind of a big dog, as their non-league schedule wasn't the toughest, so we'll see where they're at. I know they were pushed, as you mentioned, by Zane Trace for a couple of Zane Trace and Westfall. So we'll kind of see where they are at tomorrow. Should be fun on the live stream. I guess it's tonight. But overall, it should be a really good matchup. Coach Smith does an outstanding job with Adena, and obviously Coach Keller's got the Huntsman on the right path as well.
I was trying to look up something for the next game we're going to talk about, but one of the bigger SVC matchups that we are going to see this season, without looking at it directly, I think it's kind of Adena, Huntington, and Unioto that are kind of the top 3. So anytime those 3 teams come together, which would be 6, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Just quick math there. I think all 6 of those matches should be interesting. Unioto and Adena already went to 5, which I think Unioto was up 2-1 after 3 sets, correct?
Yes.
And then Adena won the last one, sets 4 and 5. So we've already seen what Adena can do with their backs against the wall. I think that was at Unioto as well.
And their non-league schedule is very tough. I mean, they beat Upper Arlington on Saturday. I don't know how good Upper Arlington volleyball is, but it's Upper Arlington. Like, you've got a lot more athletes to pick and choose from in that aspect, and they beat them in 3. So I mean, it's when you go play those teams, you're only going to get better. And I think volleyball is one of those games one of those sports where playing those better teams is obviously going to make you better. Where like a football, you may just get blown up by teams that are bigger, faster, stronger than you. Where volleyball, you can make adjustments defensively and adjust to that. Now, you still might get blown out, but you do get better throughout. And I think that's what ultimately ends up happening for Adena throughout each season.
Ready to move on to the next one?
Yes.
This will be the last game we talk about on this week's show. It's Hillsboro at Miami Trace. Both of these teams, exact same record, 7-0, 2-0 in the FAC. Samantha Tipton has been the big one in the kills category for the Indians, 78 kills, 3.4 per set. Tylee Davis with 51, 2.2 per set, also 115 digs for her. Ryan Wagoner is also at 45 kills, right at 2 kills per set, and Kayla Sealing has been deemed the main ball handler for the Indians. Around 7.6%, 175 on the season. Now, for Miami Trace, they're probably going to have the best player on the floor at all times, as they have, I think she's a junior now, back-to-back.
Senior now.
Oh, she's senior. But I know for sure 2 consecutive Player of the Years. Right. Last year was a with Chillicothe's Evelyn Hammond, but I think it's safe to say back-to-back Player of the Year in Addison Butts, averaging 6.2 kills per set, 148 kills total. Do you remember last year when she didn't play for like the first 5 matches of the season? We were like what's going on? Like, is she at a different school or what happened? But I don't even remember what the issue was, if she was dealing with an injury or something. But she's back. Lauren Farrens is also there as well at 3 kills per set at 71 total. And Kylie Yeasel returning at 11.2 assists per set, 213 total through 7 matches on the season. Yeah,
these are 2 outstanding programs. I'm going to say they're probably in 2 different divisions this year, because Miami Trace is a bigger school than Hillsboro, but they've typically both been Division II schools. And I mean, 7-0, 2-0. You can't do much better overall. I like the fact that Hillsboro has different options to go to on their attack, as they really have 3 different players that they appear to go through. But man, when you got an Addison Butts, you go through that player, kind of like Adena with Katie Burns, and then you have the secondary with Corinne Day, and then for Miami Trace you have Lauren Ferrens. So should be a really fun contest. I know Derek's going to be at that one for show. And should be a really good match there over at Miami Trace. Who's our sponsor over there?
Miami Trace?
Yeah.
Oh, Fayette Financial.
Yeah.
Fayette Financial, the official sponsor of, the official local sponsor of Washington Courthouse and Miami Trace Athletics on SOSAOhio.com.
Yes. Yes, they'll be providing the help for that. So, yeah, we got some really good soccer this week, really good volleyball. And, we'll be able to talk a little more in depth next week on both of those, especially, the game Dewey and Shane are streaming tomorrow. And hopefully your boy doesn't screw up setting it up.
Are you going to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Why wouldn't I do that?
I didn't think you were going to go.
I was mad, but I don't have anything else to do.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
I'm the best.
There we go. All right. Anything else you want to talk about this week? Anything else you want to add? Monday Night Football going on right now.
Okay. So, I'm a Cubs fan. This was Anthony Rizzo's first time coming back to Wrigley Field. His first at-bat every game, they gave him an extended standing ovation.
Mm-hmm.
They played his walk-up music, loved it. It was great. Football, Matthew Stafford goes to Detroit, and they boo him every time he touches the ball. I know it was the second time he's played there, but it is funny the difference between
football and baseball.
Especially when you get traded. They both got traded. Now, Stafford, I'm sure, probably was...
Yeah, it's not like he left in free agency.
Yeah, he didn't leave in free agency. So, I mean, come on. Don't be fickle, Detroit Lions fans. You got to win. Also, that's a stupid... Overtime rule's stupid still.
Yeah, like why not just change it for the regular season too? Like what?
Yeah.
Like wins and losses in the regular season are just as important as wins and losses. Well, I can't say they're as important,
right,
but they're still very important, especially for those two teams. Like for the for the Rams, you're in a division with the 49ers, right? And the Cardinals, we think are on the upswing, and the Seahawks are kind of just there. But
they need wins.
Well, and for the Lions,
ties.
I mean, the Lions are in there with. I mean, maybe Chicago and Minnesota aren't that great, but like Green Bay, even though they just lost Jordan Love.
Watch it. Chicago just won with the greatest debut quarterback performance
92
ever.
yards. He was the first quarterback in the last, he was like the first number 1 overall quarterback out of the last 15 to win their debut.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and he really showed out.
We could do an NFL podcast.
Yeah, that 92 yards.
Fantasy football podcast.
That 92 yards yesterday was really impressive. He looked really good.
Hey, punt block.
Didn't lose the game.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey,
game manager.
Mr. Simone. I know people get mad over that. Mr. Simone Biles with the
punt return. Yeah, Simone Biles' husband or boyfriend.
Yeah, I'm like, you always hear that like, oh, she's such and such's girlfriend or wife. Like, no, you can flip it because she's the best ever.
Right.
And he's a pretty good NFL player.
Jonathan Owens or something. Yeah. So, congrats on the Week 1 win.
Let's go. Sorry.
I don't even.
Did you watch it?
What? The
Brownies.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
That
was fine.
Are you excited for Jameis?
Like, I'm
you got to
be
play
honest.
Jameis.
And I know we're wrapping up the show here, but
I love Jameis.
I'm really not a big, so my whole family are Browns fans for the most part. I'm not a big, if I had to choose an NFL team to root for, it would be the Browns, but the Browns winning or losing doesn't affect my day. I just like football, and I like my fantasy team. The Browns could go 0-16 every year if I won the fantasy championship in my league every year. I wouldn't care. I'm just selfish like that. So, I'm going against Amari Cooper. He only had, 2 catches for 16 yards. That was awesome. I didn't care. And the Cowboys got up so much that CeeDee Lamb, who I was also going up against, didn't have to do much. So, I'm just waiting on somebody on the 49ers to ruin my night. So, we're about halfway there. But, we'll see. All right.
Well. Jason Dominguez came up for the Yankees today. They played him.
I don't even know who that is.
He's there. He's kind of weird looking. They call him an alien because he kind of looks like an alien. But they've been holding him back. They played him a little bit at the end of last year. Got hurt. They've been holding back coming up so they could, manipulate his service time. Yep. So he's going to play 9 or 8 seasons in the majors before he actually gets the free agency.
Does he just keep being a September call-up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so
Send him
they've
back to
waited even
AAA.
longer. And then I think technically if he comes up to start next year and wins, they'll get an extra draft pick for him getting Rookie of the Year next year.
Nice.
He's not that good. But he hits the ball. He's got 2 A's in his first name. It's bad.
What's his name?
Jason.
Is it like J. Asen?
Jason. Yeah, it's horrible.
I don't like him anymore just because of that. And he plays for the Yankees. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unless you have anything extra to ramble about or rant about.
Go Cubs.
Go Cubs.
They're not going to make the playoffs.
The Reds won a
Go Cubs.
one-run game today.
There you go.
Monday night. So against the Braves.
Kyle Hendricks versus Walker Buehler starting in 40 minutes. That's going to be ugly.
Not as good as Nick Martinez versus whoever pitched for them. Chris Sale. He's not even on the Braves, is he?
Yeah. Chris Sale's going to win the
Cy Young.
Cy Young,
I just didn't know it.
Charlie Morton. He's
old.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to say he's old.
He's like real old.
Tell you what, the Reds' record against teams over 500 has to be over 500.
It's not, but I'm not.
Is it not?
No, but it feels like it. Because,
it does.
Well, because they end up losing a bunch, but they'll like just sweep some really good teams.
Yeah, like they swept the Yankees, and then they got swept by the No, they swept the Yankees, then got swept by the Tigers.
Yeah,
and they got swept by
now,
the Nationals.
what hurts them is like the Tigers are technically over 500, so that hurts that record.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said technically. They're 2 games over. I mean, that's 2 games over.
They wouldn't be if the Reds didn't get swept.
There you go.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up. Episode 43 in the books. We'll get back at it next Tuesday with episode 44, Week 4 recap, Week 5 preview. Same schedule as always. It's nice to get back in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Power rankings graphic will come out on Thursday. Live streams Tuesday night with the volleyball, and then Friday night down at the Rock. So
yeah, and take an umbrella.
And
I don't know if it's going to rain or not, but hey, the good thing is, I'll add this. If we're at that game and it rains, me having one umbrella and it's being a Unioto umbrella won't matter, as we're not calling a game with Unioto into that game. Yeah, I got a golf umbrella when I was like in 1998, and that's the only umbrella I have, so sorry.
It looked a little biased, but we didn't stream the game anyway, so probably nobody saw it. So. All right, well, that'll do it for this week's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by Perfect.